What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and with me today we got the turn of Bob Lament. Bob, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Doing good. I told you before we started recording. I slept good last night, so I'm amped. I probably have too much energy for a podcast right now, but I'm gonna make it work. We're fired up. Yeah. So I wanted to have you back on again, just because I enjoyed talking with you last time, and there's so much weird stuff going on in the world. You know, we got this big eclipse coming up, and I was actually in the zone of totality for the last big eclipse. For some reason,
2017?
Yeah, and that one like got a lot of publicity, but it didn't get like the same weirdness around it for some reason. But man, what a cool experience. Like I'm standing in my backyard and you just are watching the thing come over and come over. And finally, when it completely goes, man, the temperature drops like 30 degrees, the wind picks up, the animals all go nuts. Like I've got a bunch of cattle across the street from my house, and they like right before it starts happening, they're like, uh-oh. Yeah, something's going on.
Why are these cows in a circle?
Yeah. So anyways.
I recall that as well. Unfortunately, my experience wasn't quite as cool as yours. I was in an office and they said, "Oh, the eclipse is happening." So it was only partial, I guess. Well, no, I guess I'm in St. Louis and I thought that it was close. We weren't total, but we were close to it.
I know it traveled like diagonally from like Oregon to, I think, Florida, essentially. So it went by me. So if I'm looking at a map and I'm trying to see it in my head, I think that's right. I think it would have made its way down. Yeah, for sure.
Because this time it's going in a different track. It's going, but it is going to be, we're going to be, I've been told, actually I talked to somebody who was like really into this, and they're like, are you going to go anywhere? Because he's going to go to a state park over in Illinois to be in totality. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to go in my backyard. He's like, well, you're only going to get 95%. I'm like, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's about what I got. I would have had to drive like 60 or 80 miles to be like in the exactly. Yeah. And I actually wish I did, because one of my buddies did that. He drove up to, like, there's this little border town in Oregon that's probably like 60 miles away from us. And they sell weed there, which is, great.
Oh, there you go.
So he went, he's like, I'm going to go hang out at the weed shop and just fucking do it, And so he went out there, and just like randomly, NASA had like showed up with a truck and a bunch of equipment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they set up on top of this mountain nearby. And he said it was one of the coolest things he'd ever seen. He said during it, they had this big screen up where they were kind of showing it from like their satellites and shit like that. And at one point they were showing a solar flare, where they're like, yeah, see this little band here on the outside? That's a flare. And he's like, yeah, it's, it's a tiny little thing. And they go, you could fit 400 Earths in that thing.
That solar flare.
And it's just like,
your mind's blown.
How
do
wait a minute. Even comprehend those numbers?
Anyway,
oh, I know it. Like I watch a lot of sci-fi, and it always cracks me up when like the Enterprise pulls up to a star, and you're just like, you can see it, and you're like, dude, that thing would just be
outlined.
Nothing. Yeah, you would see nothing forever.
Right. It would be so small compared.
Yeah.
Even though it's really large, but and you can see all the flares and everything better because they're blocking out the main part of the sun, so you get to see all the coronal activity, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
We got lucky so this there's not going to be another one for what, a couple hundred years?
I think so. Like the last when I looked last, I saw that there was going to be one in Miami in like maybe 40 or 50 years, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it was going to be in my lifetime, because I remember telling my buddy, like, dude, we should be in Miami for that. Like, that's going to be a party.
Yeah, maybe that's it. That'll be your going away.
Yeah, exactly, right? If we survive this one, right? There's so much weird stuff going on with this one. I think like Texas has got their National Guard out. I was reading yesterday that NASA is actually launching rockets at it, and they're calling them the Apep rockets. And Apep is the Egyptian god that eats the sun. And it's
Oh,
like,
okay.
man,
Well,
why do you
good
guys
name.
always have to do this creepy, weird shit where you do
Well,
something at a weird time and then name it the weirdest stuff? It's so
there's
strange.
there's some weird guy, kind of nerdy guy. He's like, hey, we should call this that Egyptian god that eats the sun.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Hey, and
And
while
then
we're
they
at it,
go,
why don't we do some ancient Egyptian ritual where we build our own pyramid and like bleed somebody out on the top
right,
while we're
yeah,
doing it?
why not? I mean, we have some fun, right? We got extra
Yeah.
money in the budget.
And at
Might
the
as well
same
spend
time, on the other side of the world, they're going to be firing off the LHC. So,
it.
they say that
Yeah.
it's a random coincidence that it's going on, at the time of the
Really? At the same
eclipse.
time.
But in my experience, none of these weird scientists just
No,
do
they're not,
anything by
man.
coincidence. There's always a
No.
reason for what they're doing,
Lots of planning.
right? Like I can't
Yeah.
see how an eclipse would help a particle accelerator. But again, what do I know, right?
Maybe there's something to it. I mean,
Could be.
it's obviously a big change in we're basically getting bombarded with solar radiation, and then all of a sudden we won't be for a little while.
Yeah.
Maybe
Who
that
knows
makes a
really?
difference in something, right?
I hope my
It could. I mean, the whole idea of the eclipse is what always baffles me, because you read about it and you're like, the moon is a good distance from the earth to block out the sun at these certain points, and it's like it's the exact right size and the exact right distance, and it's like also non-random, for it to happen. And everybody gets worked up on that. So it's like, why is this even happening is the big question, because you would think that it wouldn't line up so nicely, I guess. Oops.
Sorry about
You
that. My
blipped.
dog stepped on my camera cord and it came uncovered, so I had to do the Mission Impossible around the desk.
There you go.
I forgot to turn the mic off, so it was probably making some weird noise. I'm like, what the hell is this
no,
guy
that's
doing? Yeah, man.
But I mean, it's also eclipse in and of itself is also weird. I mean,
Right.
and obviously in times before, everybody, this would have been an event for everybody to gather around and worship somebody.
I remember hearing a story. I think this was on a Dan Carlin Hardcore History podcast, and he was talking about, I think it was one of those explorers, Marco Polo, or one of the guys that like circumnavigate. I guess it wasn't Marco Polo because he wasn't a ship guy, but one of these people who circumnavigated the globe. Magellan, that was the one. And he was in like the Caribbean at one point, and they were dying, like out of food, just scurvy, the works. And they found an island that had a bunch of food on it, and they go up and they meet with the chief, and they go, "Hey, look, buddy, you're going to give us your food, or we're going to tell our God to come in and black out the sun," essentially. And they're like, screw you. We're not giving you anything, right? You can't block out the sun. Your God's not that powerful. He was. And those people all died. Because as soon as it happened, they just gave up all the food. They're like, please just go. Just get out of here. We want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. I mean, it'll be. I have my plans are basically like you. I'll step out in the backyard and I'll see what's happening. I think I could, like you said before. I think I could probably go within an hour and be in totality. But I mean, the bad thing, at least for these parts for the totality, is there's a whole lot of nothing. Where it's going to be close to St. Louis. I mean, there's not a lot of towns.
Yeah, no, I get you. Like, if there wasn't that like little border town for selling weed in Oregon, there's nothing there. Like, aside from that, like that place is empty. But man, there's just so many weird things about the moon.
Out in the field, that would be okay, I guess.
Yeah,
just sit out in the field.
Yeah,
but Carbondale is one of the main areas in this part of the world for it, and they've been booked up for months to get people. Imagine. I'm surprised. I didn't even realize this until more of the news came out and everything. But I know several people who are going. They're going to go be there for it, and I was just surprised by it. I'm like, really? This is. I mean, not that it's not interesting, and I find it interesting as well. It's just I was surprised that I would know that many people who are actually, because you can't just go for a day. I mean, they make you spend to get the space, like even for a camper, you have to go for 3 days.
Oh
They
wow.
won't even they won't even rent it to you for a day,
Ah, that
even
sucks.
though it's not that far. I mean, you could drive there and back and experience the eclipse all within a day. But if you want that spot, you got to buy it for 3 days.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's extortion,
Yeah.
When you have shit like that, yeah, that's like I was a motocross racer and motocross races are the worst. You show up at the motocross, like you send in your entry fee and you pay all
Yeah.
that, and you show up and they're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be $100 for each spectator, and it's like, wait a minute, we're only gonna be
What?
here for one day, and we're just
Yeah.
watching. And it's like, no, 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 no. If you're gonna watch, you have to watch for 7 days or four
Yeah.
days or however long the race is, and we're not
You
gonna
got to
just sell
pay
you
the
one
whole
day.
damn
No, 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 no,
thing.
no. And then they're always
Yeah.
complaining about how broke they are. Oh, we just can't pay the riders because we don't have the money. It's like, yeah,
Oh,
well, dude,
no.
we
Yeah.
all know you have the money because you take it from us.
Right. It's just like the government. Oh, we don't have the money.
Yeah,
You keep taking money. Why don't you have any money?
yeah. It-
That's
it-
pretty weird. No.
yeah,
But
it's strange. Like, there's so many weird things about the moon, and I guess like even though we're not, I like the stars. I sit in my hot tub every night and look up at the stars. And every once in a while, like I pull out the star thing on my iPad to like hold it up.
oh
And
yeah, that's
what's
great.
wild is like our sky is so shit. At least where I live, like I live
Hmm.
in outside of Boise, and our sky is terrible here. Like when you're holding the iPad up, you can't even tell what you're looking at because you've got like one star, but the star thing has got like 40 in that range.
Yeah.
And it's just like you look at it and you go, man, the sky that our ancestors saw every
Mhm.
night must have just been incredible. And like, how can you not think that there's something bigger than yourself when you're looking at like
Oh right.
something like that? And I think that like there's a
You guys must have a
concerted
lot of light
effort to.
pollution there. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's bad. It's real bad. Like I grew up in Northern California, 100 miles from San
Mhm.
Francisco, and we had better sky there than we have
Yeah.
here. It's really bad. And like, I think that there's a concerted effort to keep it that way. Like we could start making
Oh.
diffused lighting for cities and for areas like that. It's not that much more expensive. But like, I don't think that
Yeah.
the elites want us looking up at the sky and going, "Holy
Oh,
crap, look at
probably
this
not.
incredible
No.
place that we
Come
live
on.
in."
No, especially in populated areas, right? So because it's just terrible if you go. I live out in the country, and so yeah, I mean I can walk around, take out the garbage at night and see all kinds of good stuff because there's just not anything around. But yeah, if you're in a populated area, you're kind of screwed for
Yeah.
looking at the sky. I I I haven't figured out why. But I guess maybe it's just not in my nature. But why everybody wants to clump together so much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
why
No.
why do you want to live so close to everybody? There's literally, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land that there's nobody in the United States,
Yeah,
right?
man.
There's nobody.
They're
You
constantly.
live out by all that, right? You
Yeah.
probably don't even have to drive 20 minutes and you're around nobody.
Well, it's a little further than that. Like Boise area is a lot bigger than most people think. Like we have a
Oh,
million
really?
people. Yeah, we have a million people in the valley I live in. So like there's
Oh,
traffic. It's gnarly just like anywhere. But if you drive like an hour, you can get out to
yeah.
McCall and you can see some really cool stuff. The next thing I want to see, and I screwed it up last year, is I want to go see the Northern Lights. Like I think
Oh,
it would
yeah.
be cool to see the Northern Lights. And we've had good solar activity for the past couple of
Hmm.
years. And me and my mom were actually going to go check them out last year at one point when there was a lot of activity. And then like an article popped up and it was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. We thought it was going to happen,
Oh,
but it's
yeah.
not. And we're like, ah, shit. So we're not going to go out and spend all night sitting out there. And then of course, like right outside of town, people were posting pictures of the Northern Lights all day the next day. And it was like, ah, we
Oh,
freaking missed
man.
it. My buddy
Missed it.
saw him recently and he said it was an incredible experience.
Well, I think at the same time, I live much further south than you, but they said you might be able to see it. And so I did drove around one evening and drive out in the country and see if I could see anything on the horizon. But I was not, I wasn't able to, and I didn't stay out like all night or anything. It was just kind of late, but it was just a little too cloudy and so forth. But
Yeah.
I've never seen them from here. I mean, obviously I've seen them on television and stuff, but I think that would be cool. And then there's like some up in Finland or something. There's like places where you rent like these clear domed places where you can stay and see the lights.
That'd be
I think
cool.
that would be so wild
Yeah.
to do that at some point. I mean, obviously Finland's a little bit of a reach, but they may have something like that in Alaska too.
Yeah.
So
I
or
wasn't aware
Canada.
that you couldn't see the actual colors with your eyes. I was always like thought that you would look up and see all these colors, but I guess it's
Hmm.
all like black and white and gray, and you can't really
Yeah.
see all of it. So I'm wondering if you're going to be able to buy like Apple Vision goggles and just
Right.
look up and see it in its glory, like that'd be
Right.
cool as hell.
There you go. Processed.
Yeah, right.
Processed.
That'd be a lot of processing
Yeah, but
in real time,
nowadays that I don't. There's no sky's the limit. I
right?
mean, you see all the AI image manipulation things. There's no reason why they couldn't do that. Because it's so easy nowadays to create things. Then why wouldn't they be able to process those things? It seems like it would be an easier task.
So where are you on AI? So like I'm a sci-fi guy. I've been reading
Mhm.
sci-fi for years, and I'm under the impression that we're probably like 50 to 100 years away from like AGI or super intelligence.
Yeah.
If you listen to the
Oh yeah.
news
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Oh, it's coming in 2029" or something like that. Like, where are you on that?
Totally, they're using AI as a marketing term, as far as I'm concerned. So there's it's there's no intelligence behind the artificial intelligence at the moment. They just like to say it because it sounds cool. Um, I think that I joked with a friend of mine. We were talking about. I said it should be called artificial plagiarism
Yeah.
because basically what it does is it just skims. It takes big pieces of data and then creates things from that data, and so it's not really, there's no thought to it really. It's just a complex database that's able to process quickly and put something together. I mean, it's not, there's no there's no real sentient kind of thought to anything. And half the time you can't even, I mean, I've played mostly with the image generators, and a lot of times you can't even get them to do what you want. I mean, they can't understand. And I mean, I'm doing, it's just like if you're doing a web search, right? So you just have to type in your words, pick your words very carefully because you can't have too many words because it's not going to understand context. So
Yeah.
you have to put in the words that are going to be words that are in the database, right? So mountain, grass, lake, you know what I mean? And you can't say, I want a grassy knoll by the lake in the mountains,
Yeah.
and
It just doesn't get it.
you may get close, but that becomes confusing because it's not, doesn't process like that. And so really, I think the simpler you are, the better you are to get results. So the funny thing is, so this year for our show, starting in January, I said every show art is going to be at least some portion AI created. Okay, so every time we do a show, whenever I go to do show art, I just type in a few words that describe the show, and I see what I get. And I had this show. It was called Gummy Gal because it was about my co-host going to the dispensary to get some gummies, and I wanted to have a dispensary location with a rack of potato chips. Okay, seems very
Yeah.
simple, right? You
Right.
just say dispensary, people at dispensary with snacks or potato chips. Couldn't do it. I tried and tried and tried all different variants of words to just make that simple scene, have it make that simple scene. Never could get it there. So then I basically just picked one of the ones that it came up with, and then I dropped in a rack of potato chips for what I wanted for this picture, right? So, and that's not difficult. I mean, I describe it to you. You can envision it, right?
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
yeah.
it's not
I've played around with
like
them too. They're very weird. They
yeah,
they don't get it, and then when you tell
no,
them that it's wrong, it scolds
yeah,
you most of the time.
yeah.
It's like, no, 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 I'm not wrong. You're just not seeing what I'm
You're not,
doing,
you
or
know,
like,
yeah,
no, you're wrong. Like,
no,
yeah, I haven't played around with them too much because I'm not going to pay for it. Like, there's
yeah.
you start screwing around with them, and you're like, this thing sucks. Like, I'm not going to pay for it. Like, type of thing.
Lucky I don't pay for it. I
Yeah.
have access for free.
Oh, good for you. Like I tried to find a free one and I ended up just giving up. I was like, this doesn't even like really
Uh,
doing anything. And I don't like getting
somebody's paying for
scolded,
it, not
you
me.
know. I've played around mostly with ChatGPT and
Yeah, yeah,
like I tell people that ChatGPT is closer to your predictive keyboard than iRobot. Like it's just
yeah.
it's not even in the same ballpark. And like I like to
Mhm,
have conversations with it about things that I really know a lot about. Because
mhm.
I know like if I start talking to it about astrophysics or any, quantum, like it could be telling me absolute gibberish and I wouldn't be able to check it like right away. I'd have to go double check.
Right.
So I ask it
Oh, that's
questions about,
interesting.
yeah, I ask it questions about dirt bikes. So I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
which racer's nickname was Chicken in the 90s?
Yeah.
And they're like, Ricky Carmichael. And I'm like, no, that's wrong. And they give me another one. I'm like, no, that's still wrong. And then they start telling me that I'm wrong. It's like, no, 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 no. I told you it's this and you're just wrong. And then I'll go, it was Jeff Metastovich. And they'll go, oh, yeah,
Uh,
you're correct. My bad.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like so it's
So it's like
really
if
an
it can't
annoying
like,
guy at the bar.
yeah. And like
GPT.
motocross journalism's very good. So it's not like there's not that information available to it.
Right.
It's just not good at looking at it. But
Yeah.
like in other circumstances, I can tell it like, hey, look, I'm riding on a hard packed track right now. It's got a lot of chatter going into the jumps. I'm getting a kick. What should I do to my suspension? And sometimes it'll
Mhm.
give you good advice. It'll be like, oh, you should
Oh,
go up on your rebound, down on your compression. That'll keep your rear end planted. And it's like, holy shit, that's completely correct.
that's
And
good.
yeah, so it's weird that like sometimes it nails it, and then sometimes it's so far off that
Yeah.
like it's not even. So when I look at it in that, it's like I can never trust this on something that I don't know a lot about because it could just
Right.
feed
You
me
don't
bullshit.
have a background in.
Exactly. Like I know so much about dirt bikes that I can fact check it in real time, but otherwise,
It may be that the other guy's name may have been in articles where the word chicken was in there and then it get cataloged like that, right?
yeah,
So they're like, I found, I'm looking through the database and I find this guy's name and I find the word chicken, 5 times. That must be the chicken. So, because it's not, it doesn't have context, right? It
yeah,
doesn't have an idea about context. And so it's just looking, it's a numbers game, right? So it's just looking at what the numbers are and it says okay these numbers tell me that this must be the answer
yeah.
and there's no context
And that
that's what
actually makes a lot of
people lack
sense
it.
because the answers it was giving were the most popular riders, the guys who'd won the most, which are
Mhm.
going to be the ones
Yeah,
that have the most articles written about them.
yeah. So but and I think the interesting thing is I think a lot of the text the AI writing things are doing pretty good. You can kind of tell, I mean, you can't always tell. You can tell when they're the bad ones
Yeah.
because they repeat. So, I mean, if you read, like I read a lot of articles and I can kind of tell, I think I can't find out because I think they're supposed to be telling you, I don't know that there's a law or anything,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of places will tell you if it's AI generated or partially AI generated nowadays. But you can kind of tell because there's a lot of repetitiveness in the article, right? So these are generally they're short articles that probably aren't more than a page, but they'll say, like when somebody dies or something, they'll
Mhm.
say, so and so, best known for this, died on blah, 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 blah. And then they go, so and so who was involved in this. It's the same thing, right? They
Yeah.
just repeat the same information, but just twist it a little bit because it's trying to fill, a word count. So because you'd say, I want 500 words on the death of this celebrity. And so then it just repeats the same stuff in order to get the word count.
Yeah.
So
And it's weird because a lot of times it'll give you answers that are way too long, that you just
yeah.
like, there's a lot of bullshit and fluff in there. And if you tell it like, hey, give me a straight answer, stop bullshitting me, stop like scolding me. I don't need a lecture. You're a tool,
Right.
not a person. And it'll just go,
Oh, you're
okay,
a
and give
tool.
you like direct answers. And it bothers me that you have to tell it to do that.
Well, I think eventually it's going to get. I mean, obviously, with everybody banging on it right now and it being kind of a hot topic, it's going to get better. And
Which is
the
why I
funny
use
thing
it,
is,
because
yeah,
I want
the
it to
funny
be
thing is,
better.
it's really been around for a while. I mean, the at least for the text aspect of it, I think the images is newer, but the text aspect of it has been around for quite some time. It's just most people didn't have access to it, and so now that everybody's got access to it, that's where, it's really going to, start accelerating, because then because every time somebody does like what you're doing, it's
It's learning.
databasing all that
Yeah.
information. Right.
Which is why I
And
do it,
so,
because
yeah,
it's a great tool a lot of times. When you
yeah.
understand what it does and how it works, you can use it in very good
Mhm.
ways. Like I rent rooms, and I was having an issue with one of my tenants recently,
Mhm.
over like odors, essentially body odors, smells.
Okay.
And that's a tough subject, right, to broach with
Sure.
somebody. And I had to
You
figure out how
stink.
exactly, right? It sucks. So I had to like, okay, I'm going to take my rental agreement and I'm going to make a new section on it. And I'm not great at writing stuff like that. So I tell ChatGPT,
Mhm.
hey, look, this is the problem I'm having. I need you to write this. And it does pretty good. I go, okay, now add this, put
Mhm.
1, 2, and 3 together, and shorten it up as much as possible. And it spits out a
Mhm.
paragraph that's very good, that would have
Mhm.
like, it's just not my style of writing. Like
Right.
I write
Yeah.
different than that. So I have a hard time writing in like legal form. So it was very useful in that circumstance. It was like, oh, perfect. Copy paste right into the thing and I'm done.
Yeah, interesting that you bring that up. That I mean, maybe there's something out there we just haven't encountered, but we so the opposite of that. So there's all this legalese, right? So what you're talking about with leases and so forth is, I mean, is in that realm. But if you could take, how you have a EULA or something you have to sign a lease or whatever, if you could take that and copy it and throw it into an AI and have it break it down for you into more simple terms and clear,
Yeah.
right? So it could where it could say, I can't do this, I can do this, and instead of how they kind of put in so much stuff in there, you can
Yeah.
read a sentence like 2 or 3 times and not understand, is this something that I cannot do or something that I can do? That would be a great tool for people to have, so
Sure.
that way, because I don't know if you've ever been in, well, yeah, I mean, you've been in a situation where you basically get hand this thing and they're like, okay, you got to sign here, and this got
Workers'
this all
comp.
this legal crap.
Like I
There
dealt
you
with
go.
workers' comp, and luckily I had a lawyer to deal with it. But if you don't have a lawyer, like
No,
you're screwed. You can't understand that
yeah,
language.
no, and who knows what's
Hmm.
in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was listening to a podcast the other day with a motocross agent, and he was saying that like most young motocrossers don't have agents. They're like,
mm,
motocross racers are uneducated. For the most part, they're homeschooled,
mm,
and they're homeschooled very poorly. So these are just uneducated kids who get like a contract and they have no idea how to read it. They don't know what any of the words
right.
mean, and they have no money to go to a lawyer or an agent or anything like
Mm,
that. Like he said, he recently got a guy who came to him and said, "I need a new team. My deal's up at the end of the year." And he goes, "Okay, let me see your deal." He sends it over and he goes, "Your deal's not up at the end of the year. It's
mm,
up at the end of next year. Who told you it was
yeah,
this year?" And they're like, "Oh, the team said that, if I didn't get it
yep,
together, like this was the end." But
yeah.
no, like it would be so easy for that idiot kid, to be able to just pump that thing into ChatGPT and say,
Yeah.
"What does this say in simple terms?"
If nothing else, even like you said, you mentioned the dates and so forth.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you kind of get, kind of information lock, where you see this whole big thing, and you start reading it, right? I mean, maybe some people are diligent, but normal people will be like, I'm not reading all this. And if something would just pull out the pertinent information for you and bullet point it, then that becomes, makes it a lot easier. there's not a tool for that yet.
No.
There should be. Somebody
Yeah.
could make a lot of money on that
Yeah.
tool. I mean, even
That
if you
that
just-
happened to me recently. Like I have a financial advisor and I've never had a financial advisor before. And he's a guy that I met, friend of a friend on the internet. Like we've never met in person. And I gave him like $100,000 and I needed to pull some out for a project recently. And I kind of like, it kind of scared me for a minute. Cause I was like, yeah, I need this money. And like 2 weeks later, I hadn't got it. And I was like, you know what? Like I never read the contract. Like I just trusted this guy and like kind of skimmed through it. Like I could have given this guy $100,000 and I wouldn't even know
like,
it.
If you don't talk to me every month, then I get to keep a percentage or something.
Like, yeah, dude, there could be all kinds of weird shit in there. And like, I trust the guy and it ended up working out fine. But there was a day or two there where I was sweating, you know, it's like, did I make a really bad mistake here? Like, you know, because it's a lot of money. And when things don't happen immediately, like your brain starts going crazy with shit like that. So
kidding. Yeah, exactly. Like he's keeping my money.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, what do I do?
But I think that would, going forward, if it's not already there, that would be a fantastic use of this technology to help people. I mean, that's really, unfortunately, you have, you know, kind of dueling purposes. Obviously, the folks who are doing it want to figure out a way to capitalize on it and make a lot of money. But the end goal really, I think, should be for all this technology to help people. You know, you speak of science fiction and everything. You would hope, let's put it that way. The end goal is to make everybody's lives easier, right?
Yeah,
and,
a personal assistant.
So that we can change.
Imagine how productive we could be if we all had a personal assistant.
Yeah, and just and make it easier on yourself. So, you know, there's all this, like you just had stress about this money.
Yeah.
A huge amount of stress, right? And so if we can kind of even out everything, and I think that would be helpful for folks going forward. We don't have to have all this stress. We don't have to have all this worry. And if these kind of tools can help alleviate some of that, then that would be, I think, the direction that everybody would want them to go. Everybody says they love Star Trek and Utopia and all this kind of stuff, but there's not a lot of people working towards that goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like.
I'm not a fan of the Star Trek commie universe. You know, in the new Picard, at one point he's harvesting grapes at his vineyard, and like he's got workers working for him.
Sure.
It's like, how does that work in communism? How does Picard get the vineyard and he's still got people working for him? They just don't think it out. But speaking of tools that are helping people, did you know? Oh, well, go ahead if you had something. Sorry.
Oh no, I just say, but that just works for the scene. So
exactly.
A lot of that comes work for the
exactly.
scene.
But nobody actually thinks it through and goes like, how does this work out? You know. But speaking
they'd
of tools,
have their own vineyard if that was the case. They'd all have their own.
Exactly.
Vineyard.
Where's his vineyard? Why doesn't he have a vineyard? Where's he living? Who
just
decides like who gets to keep the vineyards? It just, that type of stuff bothers the shit out of me because I'm a libertarian. Anyway, speaking of tools that are helping people, did you see that Elon Musk put a Neuralink in somebody?
I did. I saw that that happen, and you know that is
so cool,
very interesting, and somewhat scary. But,
yeah, terrifying.
But it is really, but it is really interesting because apparently it was working pretty well.
He did. He did a perfectly.
You can't always judge the press.
He did a perfectly human thing too, which was the coolest part of the story for me. Was he did a typical human thing, and the day that they gave him full control with it, he used it to play video games all night.
Yeah, there you go.
It's so cool. Like I just loved that because like as somebody who used to enjoy video games, I really enjoyed video games when I was younger. I liked playing the first person shooters and the racing games, and I can't do it anymore. Like there's tools that they make, but it'd be a big investment, and I just don't know that I would like it.
There's Ben Heck. Have you ever heard of Ben Heck?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So he made a one-hand controller.
I've watched his videos on YouTube before, and actually Microsoft hired. I don't know if they hired him or if they just kind of used him as a resource, but they made their own like disabled thing for the Xbox. But it's like $500, and then you got to buy all these different things to try and figure out how it's going to work for you. And there's a lot of trial and error involved, I think. And I just haven't gone down that path, but like. So cool that guy was able to do that. I was so pumped for him.
Yeah. No, it is, and I mean, it just shows, goes to show you how we're coming forward here, and the wild thing, at least from my conspiratorial mind, is it says, okay, that's public, which means it's been private for at least 20 years,
Yes, DARPA.
right? Anything that you see in the public, that's not the first time anybody's seen
Oh no,
this.
no, no,
This is
no.
probably there's somebody sitting back going, yeah, whatever. We've
Yeah,
got other
there's
stuff,
some
and
Navy SEAL somewhere in the world right now pulling
yeah,
up screens in front of his face, going, "Fuck this guy. He doesn't know what he's doing."
yeah, because we're the last to know, as it is. The public is the last to know on all these good kind of projects. I was just thinking about the other day, because you talk about Musk and the rockets. Do you remember when they did release the video of the rockets landing on the pads in the
Mhm.
ocean, just falling out of the sky, and then they just right them and land upright? Oh, it just looked like magic, right?
Yeah,
But I'm like, oh my, I'm like, that had to be happening for quite some time for them to just show us that,
I would think so too.
because they wouldn't be show. We don't the days of showing things explode on the launch pad for everybody to see are long gone. They don't do that anymore. That's turn of the century stuff, and I mean last century, not
Yeah,
this. That's 1900s. The guy jumping off the building says he's got to fly, and he lands in the ground. They don't do that anymore. Everything's tested, 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 and then finally they're shown. Once they're successful several times before you get to see it, kind of like the Neuralink thing.
exactly.
They're not going to go and do all this and fail, at least not
Publicly.
fail accidentally.
Yeah. And like I've had prosthetics made before, and the same
Mhm.
type of people, same type of shops. So like I kind of have a good idea of how this thing is going down and the way that they're working it, because they kind of do the same thing when they give you a prosthetic hand. You go into
Mhm.
their shop, they're making it during the day. You're kind of their guinea pig. You go home at
Mhm.
night, you come back, you get to use it again, and 2 or 3 weeks later, then they'll finally send you home with it. So
Right.
I can see, and like you said, like my guys are making very cool shit that they're not showing people. They've got a whole back
Right.
room that's like it's like a 200 foot by 200 square foot room that's just one big 3D printer. And it's like, what are you
Right.
guys doing back here? I'd like to see what you're
Yeah.
doing back here.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh
The,
yeah.
the interesting thing is now this opens up the Neuralink thing opens up a whole interest. So we'll progress here in our science fiction talk, I suppose, but it opens a whole can of worms because okay, so you have folks who are disabled, maybe they're paralyzed, right? Maybe they can't communicate, but you can give this to them, and now you have somebody who goes from uh, society thinks is I'm just gonna be blunt about it. They're like they can't do anything
Yeah.
for society,
Broken.
right?
Broken.
Right, they're broken. They can't help us here in society. They can't do this. They can't do that. They can't. To putting this on them, and they could be the smartest person you've ever met,
Yeah.
and now
They
they
could
can
be
finally
so
communicate.
productive up top, you know?
Yeah, they can finally communicate, and they can finally see some potential, right? So now what? Because, right? So you can't go from 0 to 100 whenever this thing happens, because it takes a lot in between, right? So the sad thing is, folks with disabilities, they have to live under a certain amount of financial scrutiny if you're going to get money from the government,
Yeah.
right? And so now let's say you can do things. Well, the problem is you can't make enough money fast enough to keep you alive, right? In certain circumstances,
And you're also
because
in
you
this weird area with health insurance where if you make too
yeah,
much, you get none, and if you don't make
yeah.
anything, it's a really bad spot they put you in.
So I had the opportunity to talk to a guy who was a lawyer who was in a car accident, and he was paralyzed pretty much from the most of his body was paralyzed. One of his hands could move, and that was it, and his head a little bit, right? And he's a lawyer, okay. he can't practice law because of his problems, because he has to take so much time off
Yeah.
for all his therapies and so forth, that he can't make enough money. He can make just enough money to knock himself out of getting money from the government.
Yeah, that's the same
And so then
situation
he
I'm in.
screws himself.
It's so screwy. Like they really, and they want you in that position. They don't want you
Yeah.
to build yourself up and get out from underneath their thumb. They want you to just be
Right.
in that spot where you're dependent on them forever. It's really, like, I struggle with it a lot because, like, I'm
Mhm.
trying to deal with this. We kind of spoke about this before the podcast a little bit. Like, I have a
Mhm.
horrible time sleeping. Like,
Mhm.
it's for me to work a 9 to 5 job every day would be nearly impossible. I just,
Mhm.
like, getting up, like, the whole thing, it just takes forever, and
Right.
if you're in pain, like, it just sucks. So you kind of have to, like, work on your own time. And if you're going to work on
Right.
your own time, you can't make more than whatever per month, because then you lose your
Right.
health insurance. And when you're
Mhm.
working that way, you can't make enough to pay for your own health insurance. So yeah,
Correct.
it's a
The
really
divide's too
shitty
big.
situation. Yeah.
It
Damned
is
if you
shit, but
do,
it has
damned
to
if you don't,
change. It
Yeah, something has to
just,
change.
I mean, there's other besides, we're on Neuralink, but there's other things that have happened to help people besides that. But really, folks who have any kind of situation where it's hard for them to be in the regular, the norm, whatever you want to say, you're at a disadvantage because you have to keep your financial situation in a certain level in order to appease the government. And then the gap between there and being totally independent is so huge that there's no way for you to jump it
Mhm.
in a regular situation
And they'll
unless you can.
tax, and they'll still tax the shit out of you,
Oh yeah,
like
they
you're a
still
normal
tax. Yeah,
person. Yep, you're
yeah,
gonna go work 2 days a week. We're still taking half your money.
yeah, exactly. It is a huge the I mean, that situation has to get resolved. There has to be something in there to allow this, because there's a lot of people in that situation who could do things, who want to do things, but because of these laws and circumstance, aren't able to, because
Yeah,
you just look at it, you're like, if you do it, you're screwing yourself.
yeah.
And
So, like, with these other, with like a Neuralink, the way I'm looking at it right now is like, do you remember that movie Ready Player One, where they were able to go
yeah,
into
mhm,
into VR? And, like, I look at it as like that guy has the visor. He has
mhm,
the adaption to where he can go into cyberspace. We just haven't
mhm,
built that world yet. Once we build
right,
that world, those people are going to be wide open. And, like,
sure,
weird things could happen. Like, one of the coolest aspects of things like that in sci-fi is frame jacking, where you can
mhm,
literally slow down time. So say
mhm,
you've got an hour or so where you're physically capable of, like, being in a certain position and doing work.
mhm,
If you could slow your brain down to where time is running at a quarter of the space, you could get a day's worth of work done in a couple
mhm,
hours compared to a normal person. And
right.
that's interesting.
That is interesting, and I think we ought to explore that. I think the problem is that government always lags,
Yeah.
and it doesn't want to change. Unfortunately,
Oh no.
that's the worst
They
part,
love their
because
hegemony. Hey, they
yeah,
love it.
everybody loves. Yeah, well, because that's power, right?
Yeah.
And so once you're in power, you don't want anyone to have the ability to get you out of power quickly, right? So
Yeah.
you want it to take a really long time so that you can make adjustments to stay in power.
I,
But yeah, I think that's Neuralink's going to open up that, and other things that are happening are going to open up these questions to where, we you have to consider it. I mean, you have to not, and just, well, what's the name of the robot, the humanoid robot that Musk has
yeah,
introduced?
I don't know it, but I know the one you're talking
But
about.
what if the Neuralink sends it to that, and then
Yeah.
that's your worker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That's your
man.
hands and that's
And
your
what if you
legs.
can write a program to have
Yeah,
that thing working while you're doing something else?
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, so we're entering in, the early stages. Well, I should say that, I say the early stages. something's already happened with all that, and we're just not privy to.
Yeah.
But as far as the public version, the early stages of all this, to where, um, we have to reassess how everything works,
Yeah.
because it can't stay working the same way. And with all these new technologies in the world, and it needs to work in a way that alleviates people, to be more free, right? Because
Yeah.
I think as we're going, everybody's like, well, we have it so much better than our parents or our grandparents and so forth. I don't know.
Yeah. We
I
don't.
don't know. I mean, I think we have more stress. I was just reading an article about in France in 2017. France enacted a law that says employers cannot ask their employees to answer emails after hours. So the employer has to tell the employee what their hours are, right? And then they can never expect that employee
Hmm.
to do anything after those set hours.
Yeah. But there's another
That's it.
employee that doesn't give a shit about those, and he's going to get
Well,
the
I know.
promotion.
I'm just saying. But
Yeah.
it's
No,
a
I
law
get
in
you what
France.
you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
And now that's in 2017. California is working on that law right now in 2024. That it has to be spelled out. So I know what you're saying as far as, somebody else is just going to usurp that. But the thing is, there are rules that most people, ascribe to. And if it becomes one of those rules, then that'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Because I know that for one, work way outside regular hours all the time, right? I do stuff all the time. I kind of do it at my leisure, but I don't think everybody has that luxury. And if you're in a more corporatized situation, there's demands.
Oh, yeah.
And you get pressured into situations where you feel like you have to be available all the time, which is not right. I mean, now, first of all, I always thought, and we're going to get, I think I'm more libertarian, but sometimes I think my ideas come across as less libertarian.
No, I think you're on point.
So, but they always do like time for, money, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I put in an hour, so then I get $10, let's say, right? Which would be crap, but whatever. It's a nice round number we can work
easy
with.
to work with, right? We're not the smartest cats.
That's not really equitable, right? No. But we don't want to go. And the thing, the hilarious thing is, we have the technology, right, for them to go and say, to give a share, right? So some professions work on a share system. So like if you work and the company makes X amount of dollars, you get a percentage of whatever is made because you've contributed to making that, right?
Value added.
There's no reason at this point in time why that system can't be everywhere. The only reason it's not is because the people on the higher end don't want the people on the lower end to make a certain amount of money.
Yeah, it's
inflation.
There's so much inflation that like wages can't possibly rise at the same rate, like it's wild.
But you could easily do, there's software, everything, you keep track of it. They could say, okay, the one-armed madman, he contributes, 5% to the overall gross of this. So we should give him, some version of that. Right.
Yeah.
And they could do it. Now, the problem is it goes up and goes down, but then you could also say, well, because of that, we're going to cut it in half. So we know you contribute 5% overall, but we're only going to give you 2% because we could have an off year and everybody would be in, we can't have your wages going down. And so forth. But I think they've convinced everybody on this hourly thing, and then they take more than the hour, and so it again, that's all part of these systems that need to be rethought about. I mean,
I like how it works in a restaurant. Like I was a bartender for a long time, and I was the best bartender at every restaurant that I worked in. Just I was a hard worker and I was good at my job, right? And you could say, like, you could line us all up. Here's your 10 bartenders. This guy, produces this much, and down the line. And instead of like, here's a bonus or something like that, I just got the best shifts. You know, it was like, hey, what shifts
Mhm.
do you want to work? Like, we need you on these 2 days because those are our busy days. But otherwise, where would you like to work? You know, make your
Mhm.
schedule because you make us the most money. And I like that, you know, but at the same
Sure, and
time,
you get
like,
some freedom.
exactly. But then looking at
Mhm.
back on it now is like, man, it'd be nice to have some stock or something on that company now that
Right.
I don't work there anymore.
No, but yeah, you should be. So you should be. But the thing is, you can't. I mean,
Like,
it
yeah,
doesn't
I
matter
helped
what
build
system
that
we
business in the
have.
beginning, and you know,
Yeah.
and now it's still kind of freeloading on the work that I put. No, I get what you're saying on that. There's a lot of
But
things that would work really well if the IRS
yeah.
wasn't taking 50% of your money.
Right. Well, that's true too.
Like, at that point, like,
That's a
then
whole other
employers could go,
aspect of
hey, if we're
things.
not giving 50% of our profits to the IRS, we can do all kinds of cool shit, right?
Right. Exact. Well, the thing is, will they though? That's the
Never.
other problem is will they? But I'm trying to remember how we got to this
I
point,
don't know.
but
I don't.
which would be a
I'm out.
Neuralink. But
Yeah, I'm out on that.
I think the thing is though that we're talking about how all these technologies can make life better for people and make people more productive. But by making people more productive, the flip side of that is the financial aspect of things, where you know if you become overproductive, then where's the end game for you? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everybody, we have a system. It's money is the system. You got to make money to pay your bills and all this kind of stuff, right? But they're incongruous. The system, the technologies don't always follow the money,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
And there needs to be something that's a little more cohesive, I think,
Yeah.
in order to do that, and also not to put so much negative pressure on people who are not in fit the norm. You know, I think that's what we're getting at is you get basically pressured to not do something because you don't fit the norm.
Yeah.
And if money's coming from the government, then you got to abide by everything they say, even if it's detrimental to you, because you can't jump the gap to be totally free of it.
You know, I just graduated
Um,
from college last year. I got paid to go to college. I never would have paid to go to college. I got paid to go. And
well, good for you.
yeah, the thing that I noticed that bothered me the most was that they were not, like, even considering entrepreneurship. They were not training entrepreneurs. Like, I got a business
Mhm.
degree, and with a
Mhm.
business degree, it's like you would think, go start a business. But that was not their goal at all. They were just creating managers. We want you to go
Right.
manage
Yeah.
Walmart. We want you to manage Target, Costco.
Sure.
Like, there was just no, like, the best people in the school were not going to be
Mhm.
pushed to be like productive and go build something that's going to help people. Or it was like, nope, you're going to be the best general manager. And then here's your assistant, and just down the line. My school's
Right.
like head campus is actually in the same parking lot as Walmart. So they're like literally training the next
We're
generation.
training the people
And
for Walmart.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was a sad aspect of it to me, because like the guy
Yeah.
that you're describing, the go-getter, the kick-ass, like the really like productive people should be
Mhm.
going out and creating new things. Like the guy who made my prosthetic, I was going to pick this up for the
Oh yeah.
Neuralink thing, but the guy's a genius. Like, just
Mhm.
a genius. He's a rock star, like plays in a rock band. He's an
Mhm.
artist, like just a complete genius. And he was able to make this company that worked with Mayo, and they were able, like, this is an innovation right here. This thing
Mhm.
that it looks just like a top of a prosthetic, but this little loop here was a big
Mhm.
innovation that took a long time to make. My first prosthetic had a cup around there that sat into
Right.
your elbow, and it just locked in a completely different way. And then this guy
Mhm.
was able to figure this out. Now he's sold it all over the world, and other prosthetic guys are using it. It's very cool.
Yeah. So your elbow fits in that little spot
Yep,
there
and then it
between the
hangs
loop.
off the top and kind of
Right.
grabs up there, and it grabs a lot better than it used to. The way it used to do, it was
With
just
suction, right?
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like a really good innovation. And without him, who knows how
Mhm.
long it takes to get in it. But there's still issues. Like, I don't like this prosthetic. I think the design is poor. I don't
Mhm.
like the suction aspect of it. Like
Mhm.
with the hand, you kind of have to do that in order to get contact with your
Right.
electrodes to get the muscle signals. Neuralink, that would allow, you just have a chip here and a chip here, and
Right.
you could bypass all of that shit.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, so I wear these little neoprene sleeves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
my other prosthetics down there, but it's a hook, and you have to roll on this nasty like rubber sleeve that you wear all day. And the way I want it is I want an elbow brace. I want something that straps here, has a hinge here, and then straps around down in here. And so I can wear this thing and not have to do it. And I brought it to my guy, and he was like, you know what? Like, it sounds like a good idea. I just don't have time to mess with it. I've got all these contracts that we got to do. We got the 3D printer room back there. Like, I just don't have time to mess with it. And that's sad to me because, like, I think it would be a superior product. And hopefully I'm going to find something.
Yeah, I can't imagine having a rubber thing on your arm all day would be comfortable.
That's my major problem when people are like, oh, I hear Joe Rogan say it all the time. Oh, yeah, in the future, people are going to be cutting their limbs off to have prosthetics. It's like, no, man. Like, this is a hard, cold plastic. Like, people don't like cold, hard things on their skin. That's why we wear cloth. Right. Like, we don't wear plastic every day. We're not dressing like stormtroopers because it sucks. So, like, I think we're ways off from, like, having realistic prosthetics. I would bet that, like, at some point we're going to go biological rather than mechanical, and they'll have some sort of genetic thing or whatever. Though the guy who did my amputation, he took my DNA and he grew a bunch of shit because he does this stuff for practice. Like he does what is it called? Transplants for practice. So like I hit him up for a transplant. I'm like, hey man, can we do a transplant? And he's like, nah, you're too young. Like you'd have to take AIDS drugs for the rest of your life. And it's just not going to work for you. And I was like, why do you do it then? He's like, for practice. Because someday I'm going to be able to take your DNA, grow every aspect of your hand in my lab, and then just sew it on for you.
Right.
Man, that's cool.
I was going to say that's like the starfish and so forth. We're looking at nature to see how they do it and see if we can replicate that so that way you can do it with a person. So then, I mean, you don't want to be doing that regularly, you know what I mean? Like as a sideshow or something where you cut your hand off where you grow up, but
but people are going to do it. Like there's some crazy people. I saw a documentary, like everybody should go watch this documentary at some point. I don't remember what it's called. I'll try and connect it into the notes under the show, but it's about this lady who like decided that she was supposed to be blind. She could see, but it's like a trans, like a trans person, this person just decided that she was supposed
I was going to be blind.
Yeah. Okay. I was supposed to be born blind or whatever. So
I was born sighted and I was supposed to be blind.
Yeah. So she went around trying to get a doctor to like cut her vision and she couldn't do it. Nobody would do it for her. So she ended up like dumping bleach into her eyes. So her eyes are
my Lord,
all fucked up. And like, talk about serious mental issues. Like we're in it, buddy. We're in it. I can't wait for like right now the trans thing. Oh, it's not a man, it's a woman. I can't wait for like when the Democrats are running John Fetterman with a chip in his brain. It's like, hey, who cares if he's a cyborg? He's still a human. The Republicans are going to be flipping out. Yeah, it's going to be a wild time, right?
No kidding. It's already a wild time. I can imagine it's just going to get wilder and wilder.
I'm here for it. I like it. I thrive in chaos. I've always thrived in chaos. So for me, this is great. Like I have a good mind to donate to Biden again this year just because it's fun. He's a fun one. Anyways,
he's a fun one. That's funny.
Well,
vote for the fun one.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, if they put Fetterman in, like, then we have problems because once Fetterman is the president and he can't talk, that means we're in the final season of the simulation. and I don't know how it's going to end, but I don't want it to.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. But who knows? I mean, maybe we'll have Elon Musk cyborg as our president.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Something.
They'll just be like on a chaise lounge with a Neuralink, and they'll just sit back and let the robot do everything.
Yeah. It's their own. Yeah, it's their butler. I was trying to think of a good butler name, but they're escaping me at this point. Jeeves, that's what there is. Jeeves, where's my coffee?
Jeeves. Well, yeah, I think that's going to be the problem. Is everybody's going to be like, well, I want him to do stuff for me. I don't want him to be out doing stuff for
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah. Screw that guy. I need my own driver.
Yeah, I need to have him hang out with me. Go
Uh,
get Doritos for me when I'm hungry.
well, hell, Bob, that hour just flew by. Why don't you tell everybody about your podcast, where they can watch it, and
Oh,
get out of
sure,
here?
yeah. If they feel like it, they don't have.
Yeah.
There's no need.
I
But,
tell people
if you
just
feel like
download it. Don't. Who cares if
Yeah.
you listen to it? Just download it and give me some numbers.
There you go. Just download it. I'm trying to save up for a neural link. No.
Yeah.
You can go to staticradio.com at
Right
Static
on.
Radio on most of the socials. If you feel like it. Again,
Yeah.
there's no pressure. Either way.
Right on.
I'm trying to think. This week we talked about bad pizza and urology.
Sounds like a good time. I'm in. Right on, Bob. It's been a pleasure. We'll do this again soon. Take it
right.
easy, everybody.
Thanks for talking.
Have a good night. Anytime. Good night, everybody.